The last time I spoke at Melbourne Uni, I explained that there are 5 myths of human progress that are interfering with happiness on an individual level and on a societal level. Let's just review those 5 myths, and then we'll go deeper tonight. Myth number 1, money brings happiness. I'm sure most of you here can see through that illusion. You wouldn't mind having money, but at the same time, you don't think it's going to fill your heart with delight in of itself. Basically, money is attractive because it seems to provide options. And there's this understanding that the more options you have, the happier you'll be. So, although myth number 1 is still very prevalent, we have to drill down deeper into it. And we find that people want the choices and the power that money seems to bring. And in that way, through the choices and the power, people hope to be happy. So it still boils down to the same fundamental myth. Money brings happiness. Myth number 2, technology brings well-being. Often it's assumed that as technology becomes more intricate and more sophisticated, human well-being will automatically follow. But people are starting to notice that along with technological proliferation comes all kinds of side effects, unforeseen issues. And many are longing for a more simple and stress-free way of life, apart from all the conveniences that technology is supposed to have given. Myth number 3, weapons bring security. What is so precious about living in a consumer society that so much militarization is necessary to protect it? What is so precious and so glorious about our material way of life that it requires such an investment in weaponry? Myth number 4, the earth provides unlimited resources for our exploitation. The pit is bottomless. You can go on extracting resources, go on exploiting resources, and there's no end. And myth number 5, not only does the earth provide unlimited resources, according to this myth, but there is unlimited sink capacity. There is unlimited waste disposal facility. Because after you exploit the natural resources, you have to dispose of any byproducts. The earth will accommodate all that waste. Our happiness, when we examine it in the light of clear intelligence, we find our happiness is based on these myths to varying degrees. It's very difficult to separate our individual happiness endeavor from these 5 basic myths. One other point that we discussed the last time I was here is how there are 2 kinds of persons who can be happy in this world. This is knowledge from the Bhakti Yoga texts. One kind is a completely enlightened person, the person who understands and experiences his or her non-material identity, who is free from any material influence, who thrives on the pure spiritual platform, who knows the difference between matter and the non-material, and who also knows the source of both matter and the non-material. That kind of person can be truly happy because that kind of person doesn't depend on the ordinary happiness and distress that is so common, such an everyday, every moment event. In other words, you're dealing with the completely self-realized, spiritually liberated person. So yes, that kind of person can be happy, although the happiness of such a person is far beyond ordinary happiness. So you'll say that, all right, you're not in that category of the completely enlightened, completely self-realized. What's the other category? We spoke last time about the unfortunate materialistic fool. Work hard, party hard. What you don't know won't hurt you. Get everything you can and in the present moment, because who knows about tomorrow. Just get it while you can. Hopefully no one here is in that category. So where does that leave us then? You have the completely enlightened and liberated from all material influence, and you have the complete materialistic fool who doesn't want to hear about anything beyond temporary pleasures and is willing to struggle and work so hard just for a few moments of temporary happiness. So we're in neither category 1 nor category 2. The Bhakti Yoga texts explain that everyone in the middle, has to be in some kind of anxiety. And because we're neither completely free from material influence, like the enlightened person, nor are we complete fools who can totally ignore questioning about what is happiness. So this middle category is ripe for being motivated to go to a higher level. I've been speaking in the USA, doing a university tour there, and it's always good to talk about another country than the one you're presently in. So when I'm in the USA, I talk about Australia and New Zealand. I'm a dual citizen, US and New Zealand. And when I'm here in Australia and New Zealand, I talk about the USA. In that way, I avoid invoking wrath. So I give the students there in the USA a picture painted by the World Health Organization and its statistics, which reveal that amongst all the developed nations in the world, the USA is rated as one of the least happy. Not only is it one of the least happy, but in terms of anxiety disorders, it ranks number 1 by far. Anxiety disorders, in case you're not studying psychology, mean anxiety to the extent that professional help is required. The World Health Organization has calculated that in the lifetime of 1 out of every 3 Americans, there will occur anxiety disorders to the extent that professional treatment should be required. I also explained to the students and lecturers that the largest organization of psychologists in the USA, the American Psychological Association, has declared that the whole country is on the verge of a stress-induced public health crisis. Generally think of a public health crisis as due to some pandemic, but here you see stress and anxiety is such a factor that it's crowned a public health crisis. We know Australia is different. And of course, many of you here are from various countries of the world. So one can always feel that, well, it's good to beat up on the USA, but things aren't so bad where we are. What I like to explain to you tonight is that no matter what country you come from, no matter what the social statistics say, the Bhakti Yoga texts go deeper into analyzing the happiness and anxiety problem. They point out that a materialist is not simply someone who has more money than you. A materialist is anyone, rich or poor, who thinks they are the body. You'll find in the classic Bhakti Yoga text Bhagavad Gita, you'll find Krishna making this point in the very beginning of that classic yoga text. Krishna explains that we are wearing bodies just like we wear clothes. And anyone who makes the mistake of thinking their body is the self, and body includes the mind, anyone who makes the mistake of identifying with matter, whether physiological matter or psychological matter, is a materialist. In other words, we're not talking about your income, how big it is or small it is. We're not talking about whether you're looking like a Hollywood movie star or not. That doesn't determine who is a materialist and who is not. We need to consider the simple criterion. Do I think I am this body, or do I understand I am a non-material entity wearing the body of matter? This is very important for us to understand happiness. As long as we're struggling for a happiness in terms of physiology and psychology, we're going to be in anxiety. Because our intelligence is distorted. We madly pursue material happiness, even though we're non-material. This is the core message of the yoga text. So many persons are practicing yoga postures and yoga breathing. That's wonderful. I do it myself. It's the best thing for the health. But the real gift of the yoga system begins with our understanding we are different from matter, and therefore we need non-material happiness. Let's back up a bit and talk about a higher version of material happiness, because many persons are interested in that. Many of you will say, we're not interested in focusing on the old-fashioned, selfish, materialistic happiness. We want an expanded version of happiness. So in your more charitable moments, you think about happiness that contributes to the well-being of yourself, of course, and to all of human society. What can you do that would make yourself genuinely happy and uplift the happiness of all human society? And then you think of what you have to avoid in order to accomplish that goal. To uplift yourself in terms of happiness and to uplift all of human society, you have to endeavor for happiness in a way that doesn't exploit other people, exploit other species, that doesn't exploit the environment, and doesn't exploit future generations. In other words, leaving the biosphere in such a mess that future generations have difficulty. Even for a more expanded version of material happiness, you see a lot of consideration, deliberation, and discipline is required. And we're not even talking about non-material happiness. We're talking about an expanded version of material happiness. Can you pull it off? Is it possible to strive for happiness in a way that doesn't exploit other human beings? Is it possible to try for happiness in a way that doesn't exploit other species? What to speak of the environment and future generations? The yoga texts point out that as soon as you endeavor for material happiness, whether selfish or more expansive, there's always some exploitation involved, because that is the way of existence on the material plane. Someone's gain is someone's loss. You're utilizing resources, you're utilizing other persons. That means someone else doesn't get those resources. Someone else doesn't have access to those persons. The yogis, the genuine yogis, have long contemplated this paradox that you want to strive for happiness, but there are always some complications, some side effects, some kickbacks. How do you act for your own happiness without damaging others? You've seen that in relationships. You try to act in such a way for the pleasure and affection of someone else, and there are these unwanted side effects, these unwanted complications. So much so that you begin to wonder, can you actually do anything in this world without negatively affecting someone, somewhere, somehow? And then, out of frustration, we throw up our hands in the air and say, you just got to do what you got to do for your own happiness. Try not to hurt so many persons, but it's inevitable that someone's toes will be stepped on. And remember, the last time I spoke, I explained about the resignation theory. Look, what do you want out of me? I didn't make the world like this. I'm just trying to do my best, you know. You've got to try to be happy in some kind of way. And yeah, someone's going to get bent out of shape somehow, some way. But what do you want out of me? I didn't make this world. That's the resignation theory. You can have the kind of happiness that doesn't exploit others, but it doesn't happen on the material plane. One requires knowledge of the non-material self and the source of both the material and the non-material. This is the kind of education that Krishna gives in the prime Bhakti Yoga text, Bhagavad Gita. How to understand all the energies that comprise you and are all around you, and how to live in harmony with those energies. Living in harmony with all the energies, both material and non-material, means living in harmony also with the source of those energies. So the bhakti yogi, the Krishna conscious person, understands both the energies and the source of the energies and how they work together. Just like when the sun is shining during the day, you don't say that there's shine coming through the window. You immediately connect the energy of the sun with the sun. So you say there's sunshine streaming through the window. What the yoga texts teach us is how to connect all the energies with their ultimate source. And the genuine yogi knows himself, herself, to be part of that source with a commitment to living in harmony with that source. Therefore, if we really want to be conversant with the effects of our striving for happiness, we require knowledge of interconnectivity, because everything we do affects everything else. So how then, with our tiny intelligence, can we figure out all the possible permutations, reactions, transactions, and act in such a way that everyone is benefited? It's so difficult for us to have the knowledge how to benefit all human beings, what to speak of all species of life. And then the unborn, the future generations. We don't want to be accused of intergenerational tyranny, destroying our habitat to such an extent that future generations of human beings have a tough time because of our ignorant behavior. So there's so many factors to take into account, even for an expanded version of material happiness. What about our happiness footprint? In our endeavors to be happy, we're having impact. Are we able to analyze in detail the full impact of our every endeavor for happiness? And where do we look? To whom do we look for happiness champions? We want role models. We want to see persons who can demonstrate higher levels. What I want to propose to you tonight is that the real happiness champions are those who are experts in non-material happiness. Those kind of persons have the knowledge to see the whole interconnectivity of living entities and their source, their supreme source. Then you can understand a dependency map of how our endeavors for happiness are always meshed with others. And if we can know how to act expertly in those interdependent relationships, we can actually make a positive contribution to real happiness. So sustainable happiness actually exists on the spiritual plane. As long as we strive for happiness on the material plane, there are problems. There's anxiety. Am I happy? You know how it is. You ask yourself constantly, because we have been molded in that way by social influence. You have to be in anxiety about your own happiness. Am I happy right now? Will I be happy tomorrow? Am I with the right person? Am I following my passions? Am I doing what I love? You have to constantly subject yourself to a barrage of these questions. You have to be in anxiety about your happiness. That's considered progress. Where is the peace? In the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains a very interesting point. Krishna explains that there are prerequisites even for ordinary happiness. What to speak of non-material happiness? Just for an expanded version of ordinary happiness, we need, number one, to be able to control our mind and senses. Number two, to have knowledge of a beneficial lifestyle. Then we can start to think about being peaceful, because without being peaceful, there's no question of being happy. So they're prerequisites, even for ordinary happiness. We need a lifestyle of mind and sense control. We need knowledge of what is the most beneficial lifestyle. How to engineer our lifestyle for achieving higher awareness. And then we can start thinking about being peaceful. But there's no question of happiness without knowing how to be peaceful. And there's no question of being peaceful without higher knowledge and the ability to be the master of our mind and senses. I'll give you another example from the USA. It's good to beat up on the USA. There was a substantial psychological study done recently involving hundreds of university students. And this is how the experiment went. The students were divided into two groups, and they were given an assignment. You're going to sit in a very sparsely furnished room, and no mobile phones, no distractions, and you're just going to do that for 15 minutes. You're going to be alone with your thoughts for 15 minutes. So one group was given a list of things the persons could think about. For 15 minutes when they're alone in this room, they could think about what they're going to eat when they come out of the room, or what sports they're going to play, or their relationships. The other group was told, no prompts, just go in this room and think. What was the result? 50% of these hundreds of university students said this was a very unsatisfactory experience. The boredom was so acute. On a scale of 1 to 9, in which 9 represented a very beneficial experience and 1 the opposite, most of them rated their experience of being alone in a room for 15 minutes with their thoughts. Most of them rated it as highly unsatisfactory. So you might say, but knowing how psychological experiments work, the setting, no doubt, influenced the results. The students were individually put in a room that was sparsely furnished for 15 minutes. But it was a sparsely furnished room. No doubt the room was uncomfortable. Therefore, just 15 minutes of being alone with one's thoughts in such a room was intolerable. Okay. The same test was done again. This time, telling the students, you can do this at home. In your own room, at home, for 15 minutes. What do you think the results were? Exactly the same. They couldn't tolerate it. 15 minutes of being alone with one's thoughts. Nothing to hide behind. No distractions, just your own mind. Reminds me of when I'm traveling through New Zealand and speaking. So many young people there live in these small towns of 2,000, and there's stunning nature all around. And what do they tell me? Oh, it's so boring here. The nature is so beautiful and everything is so quiet. You can hear yourself think. We can't stand it. It's just too beautiful, too quiet. All we can do is get stoned, completely wasted in the most beautiful places in the world. So many tourists are flying to New Zealand to experience the stunning natural beauty and quietude, but yet those who live there, so many of them are saying, especially the younger ones, it's too peaceful, it's too beautiful, it's too quiet. I remember I had to get passport pictures for a New Zealand passport. And so I went to a photo shop because the pictures had to be just right according to the specifications of the passport agency. So I walked in and there were some young ladies in their 20s who were staffing the photo shop. So I said, I'd like some passport photos. And so they heard the accent. Oh, yes, we do American passport photos here. I said, no. It's for a New Zealand passport. They looked at me in astonishment. Where are you from? I said, all right, I was born in New York. New York! We would do anything to go there. Why do you want to come here? New York! It's so boring here. People don't know what to do with peace and quiet, even if they would get it. And it's so difficult to get that. But the psychological tests become even more revealing. Again, involving university students. They were told, we want you to enter into a room for 15 minutes. And there's nothing in the room except there's a button. And if you press the button, you'll give yourself an electric shock. Before the students would enter the room, they signed a paper saying that they would rather pay money than experience an electric shock. Once they are inside the room for 15 minutes, and there's nothing else but their thoughts, what do you think happened? The ladies will be interested to know that 66% of the men pressed the button. They couldn't handle 15 minutes alone with their thoughts. They knew the button was going to give them a shock, but they just had to do something, fidgeting, just 15 minutes. Press it. At least something will happen. 26% of the women, for some reason, almost 3 times as many men pressed the button and gave themselves a shock than women. Still, you would be shocked to know that anyone would do that at all. Just 15 minutes. This shows you how distracted the mind is. And when the mind is so distracted like that, how can there be peace? And without peace, how can there be happiness? What's bubbling underneath all this unrest and mental disturbance and acute anxiety? What's bubbling underneath it is desire. I wonder if any of you have ever tried to stop desiring. Did you ever embark on a program for extinguishing all your desires? You may have heard, if you studied a bit of Buddhism, you may have come across some understanding that desire is the problem. Craving, the thirst, brings about distress. So if you can stop craving, if you can stop desiring, then you save yourself so much misery. So I wonder if any of you have actually tried to stop desiring. And how long did your effort last? You can just see yourself. Let's say tomorrow's Friday night. Your friends call you up. You going out with us? No. This weekend I'm going to stop all desire. Try it. I'm just going to sit in my room and extinguish all desire, just like you blow out the flame of a candle. Your friends will think you've gone mad. They are right to a certain degree that the Bhakti Yoga texts explain it's impossible to extinguish desire. You can artificially endeavor to do that, but sooner or later the desires manifest again. Let's say you spent all your life beating your head against the wall, and somehow or other I'm able to convince you to stop doing that. I've done you a great favor. Just stop banging your head against the wall. Once the pain dies down in your head, you're going to feel relief that, I'm so glad I stopped banging my head against the wall. But how long does that relief last? If someone doesn't teach you what you should actually do with your head, you're going to start banging it against the wall again. In other words, you can't thrive on negative knowledge. I'm going to stop suffering. I'm going to stop desiring. I'm going to stop being a self. You may talk like that, but you won't be able to do it. You have to endeavor, and endeavor is based on desire. Desire is a very subtle form of energy. You can't stamp it out. It's always conserved. What the Bhakti Yoga texts give you is purified desire, the knowledge of how to desire in perfection. Now that you stop banging your head against the wall, here is what you should do with your desire potency. You can't snuff it out like you do the flame of a candle. It's true that if you would just stop material desire for a few moments, that would be beneficial for you in the world. But that is no permanent solution. When you were little kids, did any of you experience being punished by having you had to sit in the corner? How long can a little kid stay in the corner? Not long at all. The parents know that a child can only sit in a corner for a short period of time as a punishment. Sooner or later, the child wants to do something. So our desires are like that. In order to stop the child from causing havoc, you smearing ketchup on the walls of the house or things like that, you tell the child, sit in the corner or go to your room Maybe that's another form of punishment. Yes? Go to your room. Don't come out. Sit in the corner. That is a temporary measure for controlling bad behavior. So similarly, programs for stopping all desire are temporary programs which have a temporary beneficial effect. But they're not a permanent program, just like you can't keep a child locked up in his or her room, or you can't keep the child in the corner. You have to give the child constructive activities, a better program. So this is what Krishna is doing in Bhagavad Gita. Krishna is giving us a perfect program for our desires, rather than say, stop all desire. Because that fire of desire is intense. Is there a way to use that fire of desire for the highest purpose, rather than letting it burn us for the lower purposes? Many persons who consider taking up authentic spiritual lifestyles are worried. What about my desires? They imagine that a spiritual lifestyle involves repression. They think that, all right, I've been frustrated trying to enjoy materially. I know that material happiness, whether in the ordinary gross way or in the expanded, less selfish way, I know it all is not satisfying. Therefore, I'm going to stop all activities of striving for material happiness. I'm going to stop all desire. It can't be done. The Bhakti Yoga texts give us a program for how to desire in perfection, not how to annihilate desire. Our problem is the mistaken expression of desire. We're trying to enjoy the material, whether that material is in the form of plastic or steel or silicon chips or flesh. We're trying to exploit matter. And in that way, we become the slaves of matter. This is the way that the energy of illusion works. And indeed, the Bhakti Yoga texts explain that there is an energy of illusion. The more we sink our teeth into the material energy and try to exploit and enjoy it, the more entangled and miserable we become. But we have to do something. What do we do about this fire that's raging in us? That fire that won't let us sit still with our thoughts for even 15 minutes. We'd rather shock ourselves. Do something. You look at relationship problems. So common these days. Hooking up, hooking off. Often you say, that's it. No more relationships. You're not going to try to love anymore. But how long does that last? Human beings require relationships. Human beings require love. Similarly, human beings will always desire. Therefore, the best program is one of how to desire in perfection. How do you do that? Recognize that you are a tiny desire entity and you're part of the supreme desiring entity. And the two are meant to harmonize. The culmination of the yoga system is about the ultimate connectivity. How the part connects to the whole. That is being holistic. If we have no knowledge of the complete whole, then how can we truly be holistic? In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains that all living entities are parts of the Supreme, and they're meant to exist in a perfect, loving relationship with the Supreme. This is the top rung of the yoga ladder. What begins with the yoga postures and breathing culminates in the love supreme, culminates in the highest gift of the yoga system, which is pure consciousness of our relationship with the complete whole, with the Supreme Source. So this is what Krishna is giving in Bhagavad Gita, the prime Bhakti Yoga text. Our problems with desire and its fire are because we are functioning as if we're amputated, cut off from the complete whole. We're functioning as if we are entities unto ourselves, just like if this hand is cut off from the body, yet it wants to act like it can benefit itself. It's not possible. The hand is part of the body and meant to function for the benefit of the whole body. Similarly, we are parts of the Supreme, and we're meant to function in harmony. When we desire in that way, then we achieve the perfect lifestyle. So as long as we don't know what to do with desire, our lifestyles are going to be so troublesome. Is there a way to desire beyond physiology and psychology? That knowledge is the greatest gift of the yoga system. So just think, the solution is not to extinguish desire. The solution is to purify it. Through an appropriate lifestyle, you can desire in perfection. The proper knowledge is required. The proper lifestyle. So what we're talking about then is how to engineer your lifestyle so that desire expresses itself in a way that's beneficial for you and for everyone. That takes refinement. It takes distilling of desire so that it reaches its pure potential. In other words, you can call Bhakti Yoga or Krishna consciousness the science of desire. How to transform that fire of desire to something that will give you the best life. So please consider, what is the missing element in your quest for self-improvement, in your quest for self-advancement? The missing element is how to handle that fire of desire. Do you ignore it? Or do you just indulge in the lower desires? What are higher desires? How can desire benefit everyone? Not only all human beings, but all species of life. The environment, the future generations, how to desire in that way that everyone can benefit. This is the way to be truly peaceful, and this is the way to be truly happy. In other words, this kind of happiness is far beyond ordinary happiness. This kind of happiness is totally non-exploitative, and it's totally beneficial for everyone. Oh, I thank you for your kind attention. Maybe there's some questions.
you mentioned about desiring imperfection. Can you explain the difference between desiring that and what we perceive as desiring perfection?
Desiring imperfection means that the part desires harmony with the complete whole. In other words, this is how to be genuinely holistic. Yoga literally means, the Sanskrit term means to link, to connect. So how to desire imperfection means to desire that ultimate perfect connection with the complete whole, the ultimate source. This is the information Krishna is giving. When we talk about Krishna, we're talking about the ultimate source of pleasure. This is what the yogis are aspiring for. Their ultimate quest is how to connect with that unlimitedly attractive ultimate source of pleasure. When the desires are focused in that way, you have the perfection of desire. The part completely in harmony with the whole. It's all about lifestyle. How to use your senses for harmony rather than disharmony. Our desire expresses itself through the senses. Therefore, there must be a lifestyle program for the senses. And in that way, your desire can be purified. Without purification of desire, there's no peace. And without peace, there's no question of happiness. The minds are deep in thought. That's good. I always like speaking at Melbourne Uni because the audience is always very thoughtful. You heard some mantra meditation tonight, and I wonder how many of you understand what mantra meditation is about. I'll explain briefly. Mantra means a sound capable of rescuing your mind from illusion and attaching it to the ultimate source. We explained that the yogis know that Krishna is the unlimitedly all-attractive source of pleasure. So the best mantra is about connecting the tiny particle that we are with the Supreme. Mantras are not just any sound. They are prescribed, just like you go to the chemist with a prescription from the doctor. You just don't go to the chemist and ask for anything. You have a prescription from the doctor and you get a specific remedy. Similarly, the yoga texts contain mantras, and of the mantras therein, the Krishna mantra is considered the consummate mantra for accomplishing that ultimate connection with the ultimate source. So that's why we stress the Hare Krishna mantra, because it's prescribed for those who want the perfection of desire. So I'm just going to ask for your participation for a few moments. I'm going to lead some mantra meditation and ask you to reciprocate. And in this way, if we put our hearts into it and focus, we can experience a shift. So it's just like you experienced in the beginning. I'll sing a simpler tune. The main thing is the core expression of your desire. That's even more important than the musicality. So just like in the beginning, I'll sing and then you please sing in response. And we'll just do it for a few minutes. It'll do you no harm. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Very nice. Thank you very much.